Hi, Rigsters here, back with episode 3 of the F-16 series. This time, just going to do a takeoff, and this is a continuation from episode 2 of the cold start. Now I've parked the plane over here, and I've just taken a good look at it because I noticed there is 2 wing tanks, some practice bombs, and 2 practice AIM-9 missiles, which don't know why, but so just do a quick thing here just to show you what I mean here. So some of the things you want to note. So for takeoff, I'm going to try to put yourself near the center of the runway if you're by yourself, which it is in this case. The speed gauges you want to watch on the left, obviously, just as I alluded to last video, is this is in calibrated knots. Below that is your Mach speed. So when people say in the F-16 their Mach speed, they're referring to the bottom left corner speed, just above the nav. The 0 right here is just calibrated speed in knots, of course. On the right here is your altimeter, based on sea pressure. The R right here is your radar altimeter. And the 027 on 001, that is your distance to waypoint. Obviously, I didn't set any of the navigation up because I didn't want to overcomplicate it. And based on feedback, people want to make me really split the living daylights out of topics. It's not something I'm comfortable with doing, but I'm going to do it anyways. So, some quick tips before rolling out. Once you start gaining some speed, by increasing the thrust, is you eventually want to turn off your nose wheel steering. When you want to turn off your nose wheel steering, you ask? When this speed gauge right here starts reaching about 50 or 60, that's when the rudder, and one of the few times you actively use the rudder on the F-16 outside of taxiing and certain maneuvers, this is when you're going to use the rudder the most, is when you take off. So that's to keep in mind because the rudder is really tiny on the plane. And normally, of course, and I know this is like a running gag in some communities, of course you would also check the wind and all that, but this is just to get you up in the air. That's the intent. So I'm just taking a look real quick to make sure there's no warnings. Fuel looks good. One other procedural thing we'll do is we'll hold the nose wheel brakes, and I'll have one quick tip for you while I'm holding the nose wheel brakes. Is if you hit right control enter by default, this might be different on some keyboards, you'll see in the bottom left corner is my control indicator. When I let go of the wheel brakes, you'll see these bars move up and down. That's your wheel brake indicator. And you'll see this thick metal bar that I'm slowly spooling up here. That is your thrust indicator. When it hits the thin line near the top, that's your build power indicator, and past that's afterburner. It's good for troubleshooting or if you're wondering what's going on with your joystick or throttle. It's not something I rely on as much as I used to, but I wanted to show for transparency so you can see my inputs. And another thing to note is going to be more milsim correct next to the landing gear handle. Select that to taxi. Now the plane's brighter and it's not as difficult to see. It's just a procedure thing. It's not mandatory. Some squadrons require it. Some servers recommend it. Know the land. That's what I'd say by that. And one last thing before rolling, while putting the throttle to 80, which is right there, is that when afterburner versus build power, most of the time you're going to be taken off in full afterburner. So these speeds come up quickly. Depending on your weight of the plane, typically you want to gently pull back the stick between like 150-ish knots for lightweights and about 180, or sorry, edit this out. Typically you want to pull between like the nose gently back between 155 to about 190 knots, depending on how heavy you make the plane. So in this case, it's kind of like in the middle, so probably be around approximately 165 is when I'm going to start gently pulling the nose back while going full afterburner. So I'm going to release the wheel brakes, preset to full afterburner, the plane roll down the runway a bit. Now I'd like to hit the nose wheel steering button, use the rudder. Now I'm starting to gently pull back on the stick around 160. And make sure you retract the landing gear with the landing gear handle button or click on the handle before 300 knots. Ease back the throttle as you maintain between 5 to 10 degree climb. That's usually a happy medium. Some people say do 5. Depending on your weight and wind conditions, you can go in between 5 and 10 if you're on full afterburner. And that's how you take off in the F-16. It's really that simple. So I hope you enjoyed this video. For episode 3. Next up will be an attempt at landing. Oh boy. You're gonna really either cringe or die of laughter for that. I'm usually not the smoothest slinger. So, see you then. It's Rigsters Journey, signing off.